First, I want to say thank you to everybody for coming out. This is kind of an exciting time. Seniors and their parents are getting ready to take that next step here, and sophomore, junior parents, you guys are starting the process and starting to figure out, what is ahead for your student, post high school here. So it is an exciting time for everybody. These are, a bunch of students and families here that have been through the process, and we're going to let them do most of the talking today. You're going to have a chance to listen to your student's counselor, hear many different counselor events over the next year. But this is a chance for the students and parents to kind of give you their insight, their take, what worked for them, what didn't work for them through the process, and hopefully you guys can take something away from that. There's a few different just kind of nuts and bolts kind of stuff. This is a time, and I'm sure at some point they're going to talk about going on campus visits and how that's helpful. On our RB website, I didn't make printouts for everybody. You guys can go to the RB website. There's a student services link, and there's a helpful hints for college visits guide on there for you. It's basically a 1 or 2 page little PDF that you can print out and bring with you to the campus visit. Basically asking questions, things you should look for. Just kind of a nuts and bolts information that you guys can take with you when you do go take a look at different campuses. Other thing that I want to put a plug in for, there's Camp College, and I don't know if anybody on the panel went to that, if they talk about it later, but Mr. Franco, another one of our counselors, does a 1-week event. This year it's June 5th to 9th, and all the information again is on the RB website. And it's a 2.5 hour a day. It's Monday through Friday of that week. There's a morning session and an afternoon session where you get all the nuts and bolts of the college process, really getting a jump start on applications, getting a jump start on essays, and kind of all the other pieces that go with it. So those are two things that I want you guys to make sure you take a look at. And basically how this is going to work. I'm just going to moderate questions here. There's a bunch that we're going to ask the panel, and we're just going to go straight down, and the panel is going to give their insight towards each of the questions. I will let each of the panel members introduce themselves. Obviously, we have 3 parents and 3 students that all had unique experiences with their college search, and we'll let you guys introduce yourself, and we'll just start with that.
Okay. I'm Amy Scott. I have a senior and a sophomore here at RB.
I'm Carol Barlow, and I also have a senior and a sophomore here at RB.
Mark Michkowski, twin seniors and also a freshman.
I'm Cynthia Smith, I'm a senior.
I'm Kate Barlow, I'm a senior.
I'm Olivia Weimer, I'm a senior.
Okay. So we'll start with the first question. We'll start with you, Amy. What colleges did your student apply to, and where will they ultimately be attending if they decide to?
Okay, we finally just decided this week, so I'm happy. My son applied to CSU, Colorado State University, Colorado Boulder, Purdue, Indiana University, Marquette, Dayton, and then he had other schools recruiting him to play football, Illinois Wesleyan, Coe College, DePaul, and Greencastle, and North Central. So he decided on Illinois Wesleyan, and we toured all of them.
Oh my gosh. Kate applied to Montana State, Northern Michigan, Northern Colorado, University of Colorado Springs, and University of Minnesota Duluth. And she chose Montana State.
John applied to Iowa State, Marquette, Dayton. It's really about it. And he's going to Dayton. And then Zach did Iowa State as well, Miami of Ohio, Dayton, Marquette, WashU, UNC Chapel Hill, Georgetown, Notre Dame, and he's going to Notre Dame.
I applied to Loyola, Claremont McKenna, Case Western Reserve, University of Chicago, Purdue, Marquette, and Ohio State University, and I was also going to apply to a bunch of other highly selective schools, but I applied to Chicago Early Decision, so I ended up attending there, and it didn't end up sending in those applications.
Well, Carol's my brother, if you didn't figure that out.
So you might be hearing the same answers from both of us. So like she said, I applied to Montana State, Northern Michigan, Colorado Boulder, and Minnesota Duluth, and I chose Montana State.
I applied to University of Michigan, which was my new school, and University of Indiana, Bradley University, and St. Louis University, and I'll be attending St. Louis University next year.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with you, Olivia, this time, and we'll go back the other way. What kinds of things did you prepare to help with your search? What did you prepare on the front end?
Well, the first week, or like the first month of senior year, the senior class got together and we had a huge college meeting where they told us everything that we should be doing to prepare. And it kind of freaked me out because I hadn't looked into any colleges or anything. So I went online. I pretty much wanted to be a nurse all high school. So I looked up the best nursing schools with that were in range of my GPA and the ACT score that I got. And so that's pretty much what I did. I did a lot of search online, and so did my parents. And then I went on 4 college visits, which were awesome because they really sealed the deal. And you got to see like the student life along with the buildings that you could initially be in.
What types of sites online did you take a look at?
Well, we have some college like websites on our on the RBHS, Naviance, which is something we're set up with that helps you narrow down your college search as well as like what you're looking for. So I use that, and then Google is a good one.
I as well was a big user of Google throughout this college search. I basically looked up good psychology schools far away because I wanted to go far. So then that gave me like a broad list, so like more out west, and then there was just I narrowed it down through like other characteristics that I was looking for, such as like what I could get into with my GPA, and like the climate of the school and like the region as well. I used a lot of the websites that Olivia was talking about on Naviance. Those are big helps. Your students will probably know what Naviance is. I don't know if you will, but the counselors make sure that they do know. So Naviance is a really good way to set your students up for like specific matches to schools that fit what they're looking for. So I use that a lot as well. And the campus tours are awesome, for sure.
Regarding Naviance, all your students have a Naviance login, Naviance access. Freshman and sophomore year, we spent a lot of time doing career-based stuff with the students. And in junior year, they've already done a couple college searches. The parents, you guys can have full access to that as well and get a login. If you don't have one already, feel free to email your student's counselor, and they'll be able to set you up really easy with that.
And so I use a website called niche.com, which I think is listed on the student services page on the RBHS website, and it's really good because it gives you like a grade of the school that you want to look at. So it'll tell you like the academics here have like an A, the sports here have a C. So it gives you like a feel of what the school's about, and then you can check to see which are the most popular majors. And then also, what's a good guide if you want to read a book? There's the Fisk Ultimate Guide to Colleges, and it's a big book. It's around like this thick, but it has I think around 200 colleges and universities, and it'll give you like a quick overview, something that captures the student culture, the quality of life, the strength of the academics, and then it gives you some of the requirements. So it tells you this school, you need to be in the application, and by this day you need to take these tests and all of that. And then also I attended a lot of college representative visits at RD because that's really important because the colleges come to you. So if you can't afford to go on a college visit like all the way in another state, they can come to you.
Can you explain a little more about the college reps?
Oh yeah.
How that works?
So on Naviance, there'll be announcements throughout the day of, hey, this DePaul will be visiting RD next Wednesday, and then so you can go on Naviance and reserve a spot for yourself, and then it'll tell you like what periods. It's usually like period 5 or 4, where the school will come in, and then you can just give you a pass out of your class, and you go sit in there and listen to the college rep.
It's a good way for a college rep to put a name with the face too when they are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get a lot of out-of-state schools coming in for that?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, we have reps, especially in the fall. We have reps almost all day long, every day, and plenty of off-state. Yeah. Great. Question?
What was the book called again?
FISC, Ultimate Guide to Colleges. Yeah.
We kind of started ours a little bit early, where we actually started doing some visits freshman summer, and our thought process was start exposing them, like hearing what, trying to determine like, do you want a small school, big school, middle size, but then, okay, here's a school that you're thinking of getting into, and so then having these people tell them, here's what you need to get into X school, as opposed to me having to beat them, not beat them, but have to be on them all the time, like keep your grades up, study for ACTs, all that, and then I can just say, well, Zach, you want to go to X school? Well, they said their median ACT is this, their median GPA is that, and you need to do this as far as activity, that. So then it helps, say there's a school that they really, really like, wow, I was really blown away. And then all of a sudden they're creating the goals. It's they're setting the goals for themselves. It's not us doing it, saying, mom and dad, you're telling me to do that. I think that was kind of helpful, and it's just, the earlier you do it, the better, I think, because it's, as everyone knows, time flies, and then maybe try plan. We did it with friends that are here, where we planned a family vacation, and then we hit North Carolina to Wake Forest on the way. And then, trying maybe, like we did Dayton and Miami at the same time, because they're right next to each other. And that was nice to get an instant comparison right then. And you're probably going to have to drag them, though, even though, I don't know, to me it sounds like, hey, let's go see some schools. It sounds fun, but there were some schools like, we don't want to go there, I don't know anything about it. Then, for instance, like John, we go to Dayton, and he was floored by it, and that's where he's going. Plus, we bribed him saying, like, we'll get you something from every school that we visit,
I have a question. Do you think it's a great idea to sort of incrementally visit these schools for just the formality of it? Do you just call them up in admissions and say?
No, no, if you go on every site, they'll have undergraduate admissions, right? And then they're going to have a section, you just click for campus visits, and every school's going to have, everyone's going to have different, like an official. I suggest if you have the time to sign up, they have schedules, you sign up and you go, and usually it's a student-led tour. It's nice, it's usually like 10, 12 kids with one student, and they're going to give you their insight. Your kids can ask questions, and then you go there, and then like certain schools, like Dayton, for instance, if you do an official, they log you in, so you do an official, if you've done an official visit, so now John will get $1,000 off every year off of his books. So he gets $4,000 off, just because he did an official visit.
A lot of schools, depending on the school, like Mark said, some of them you just sign up for a certain time. They might have a designated tour time. Some of the smaller schools will have, you might get some more one-on-one attention depending on, they have admission reps that will just show you around. And it's really good if you do go on a campus visit, make sure you are signing up. There could be little perks, like Mark mentioned, with scholarship money, book money, just demonstrated interest. If you're really interested in a certain school and you show up, do a campus visit, walk the campus by yourself, they don't necessarily know you were there. They don't necessarily know how interested you really were in that school, where if you do make that personal contact through the admission office, sometimes that could be, not a lot, but it could be a deal breaker at some point.
Yeah, I would say, the demonstrated interest, you're going to hear that term. Anytime, like if your son or daughter has a school that they're really, like if you do the visit, anytime you'll start getting stuff, if they're in the area, I suggest they go. Even though like mom, dad heard it all, just go. Because when it's all said and done, they log that, and then they're like, hey, looking over him, he keeps coming back, or looking over him, he might be a borderline. Well, this kid went to 5 of our things over the last 2 years. He obviously is interested in our school. And that might be the thing that makes or breaks them getting into that school.
Absolutely.
I would say one of the things that was really helpful for us is that Kate has always known she wants to go into psychology. So we were able to plug that into our search. We also use the collegeboard.com, I think, where you can plug in all different criteria. Like I want psychology, I want these certain states or this region of the country, I want pay this much, I want merit-based scholarship money, I want this size, I mean, all different criteria, and then you hit, you know, you hit send and it submits a report back to you, that's, these are your schools. Montana State kept popping up. You know, so that was a tool that I found really helpful that I didn't know was there. But if your child knows what he or she wants to do, that's a great place to start. Ruby has a couple ideas. That was really helpful for us.
And I would say for me, it was a matter of just kind of gathering as much information from as many different types of sources that I possibly could get the information from. So taking advantage of these kinds of events at the high school, I was in there like having panic attacks, writing everything down, and a lot of talking to people that had students at the universities and kind of getting their perspective. And oh, you know, you hear all these, oh, this is a party school, or this is, you know, and then you go and you kind of see for yourself. So sometimes it's good to listen, but not to believe until you make your own decision. Really looking online and doing a lot of the virtual tours, because even after I would go to the school, I still would go back to the online just to revisit it again and be like, oh yes, or there's just so much, it's a little overwhelming to take it all in. So I felt like just getting lots of different types of information was helpful, not all one source. I think it kind of helped to balance it out. And I feel like we've really exhausted through going to all these schools multiple times too. I really think it's been kind of overwhelming. But I think as you go on each tour and you start to prepare even more, it becomes more clear what direction you need to pull into. So I think just having a balance of resources is kind of overall the key to go with. So.
Okay, this one we're going to start with the students again. Oh, question, I'm sorry.
So I've done a couple tours with my daughter, and they do suggest your kids go back for classes. Did any of your kids go to tours where they stayed a couple days and went to classes and stayed in the dorms?
Yeah, actually, on Monday, well, Sunday to Monday, I stayed over in a dorm at St. Louis University. Got to feel how it is, like the student life, meet a ton of the students, get their input. And then I actually stayed in the class. I took physiology, I think it was. It was really interesting, and I got to feel like the classroom too as like the teachers, which was like something that really helped me see that I made like the right decision for my college choice. If that answers your question.
Yeah, did you do that? So you just did that?
Yes.
Okay. So if you didn't like it, you wouldn't have accepted that.
Yeah.
Solidified.
Yeah.
Solidified, that's good.
When you are doing that, if seeing a...
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, because my son did a few overnight visits, and it was great actually, because he came home and said, that one's off the list, you know, or now it was like, shoot, now this one's climbing to the top. So the more exposure, the better. And the other thing I was going to add too, that just because we did so many tours, is I had the same list of questions at each tour, because that way it was easier to compare apples to apples, because otherwise, honestly, it gets like, oh, this one has 14 libraries, this one has 2, this one has, you know, just kind of having specific lists of questions and then repeating those questions was helpful. But the overnight thing solidified things, or that more exposure, I think, helped with the decision.
And if seeing a class or sitting in on a class is something your student definitely wants to do, that's individual school by school. Some will do that, some won't, and that's something you could just ask the admission rep that you set the visit up with if that's something. You know, every school has open houses and things like that that are generally attended by more people, and sometimes they can't accommodate that. But if it's just a normal day, like on a Tuesday afternoon, and you go, they might be able to set that up depending on how it works out.
So I have a question regarding the application process. All of you applied at a lot of schools, which seems like very costly and very time consuming. So my question is there anything you could have done to narrow down that list so that you weren't having so many applications? Or do you regret not, having fewer lists, or,
Well, a lot of, some colleges, if they really want you to go there, they can give you shortened applications, which take like 10 to 15 minutes. So there are a lot of schools that do this now, actually. They email you back, we really want you in our school, so we're gonna give you a specialized application, so it's your name, your email, whatever, your GPA, your ACT score, and they're like, thanks, we'll let you know if you're in or not in a couple months. So that was super easy. Another thing that really helped was the common application, which is, there's like over 400 colleges that accept this application. So you literally just have to fill it out once, and all of those schools can look at you and decide if they will accept you or not.
It
What
does
are
include
the fees
essays.
like?
They include essays too.
What are the fees like?
It depends on school. A lot of highly selective schools charge around $75 because they get over 31,000 applicants, and so it's a lot for the admissions office to deal with. But if it's like a school that you know you're going to get accepted to, and they really want you, they'll usually waive the fee and they'll send you like a shortened application. So that's what I did, and I got into like a lot of schools I know I would get into, and those were backups just in case. So then, yeah, there's also, if you qualify, there's fee waivers that you can get for the Common App, so you don't have to pay like $75 for each school. And there's also a program called QuestBridge, so it's usually for families that make under $70,000 a year. And what it does is, it's a very rigorous application process, but if you're selected to be a finalist, they'll send out your applications to 10 different highly selective schools. And if you're accepted by the school, they'll pay for you all 4 years. So
The other thing is all those mailings, like we had a whole basket full of all the college, and a lot of them have a code you can add in to waive the application fee. So we were like ripping them open like it was like Willy Wonka's golden ticket, you know, I found one, you know. And so I'd say, apply here, and he'd say, I don't want to go. I'm like, I don't care, it's a free, you know, but you still have to pay for the transcripts, and, you know, it is expensive. The one thing I will say though, because we applied to so many, is what I did like about applying to so many is what happened is when he got accepted, we got a financial statement specific to what they were offering. So there's like a set, you know, tuition. But then once he applied, it was like, well, you don't have to pay this much because you're getting merit scholarship. Like my son got awards for leadership, so they took money up for that. He's an officer for Best Buddies, they gave him money for that. But unless we applied and paid those fees, I would not have that specific, and I actually used that to negotiate, sorry, I don't mean to jump ahead to financial aid, but he was torn between two schools. So I used those two sheets, the financial sheets, and I went back and forth, and they were trying to beat each other. So it does, you pay a little, but I think it'll work to your benefit in the end.
So I mean, I would say you're looking at an average of anywhere, you know, if you're using a ballpark average, probably $40 per application.
Yeah.
But some, as Cynthia said, could be more, and you can also get some fees waived as well. Caroline?
Yeah, I was just gonna say to your initial question is, our situation was a little different because like Montana State was the first school that we went to visit, and like right away we knew. Like Kate knew, I knew, you know, my husband wasn't with us, so it was, you know, he's like, oh, she can't just apply to one school. Well, in the end, so I was like, well, you should apply to a few more schools, just as backup in case you get out there and it's too far away, it doesn't work out, and, you know, we sort of pushed her to apply to some other schools, and, you know, it was our choice to spend the money, but sometimes you just know, like, it's like buying a house, you walk in, you're like, oh, this is it. And that's kind of what it was like, and I think if she had to do it over again, and I had to do it over again, I would have saved myself a couple $100 finding the other schools, so, you know, but that's hindsight too.
We'll move on to personal statements and essays. Any advice you have for the students and parents on that? We'll start with you.
Okay, so just a little advice for juniors, and parents to get your juniors motivated. Write your essays early. I'm a procrastinator. I didn't procrastinate this time, and it actually worked to my benefit. Once your juniors write their essays, they're going to want to critique them, read them over again. It really helps, and then have like 2 or 3 sets of eyes on them. Really helps, like a Lang teacher or any of like the English department teachers can really help. They can bring their essays to them. Even their counselors get feedback from them. And then also, Okay, a little side, but it's also good, like, if say your essay topic is something very general, like, oh, who's someone that you look up to? Most applicants might write about their mom or dad, which is okay, but I, like, speaking from, like, personal experiences where colleges I didn't get into, my competing, like, classmates, they wrote more essays that were very unique, so they would write about a different story per se. I don't know how to, like, explain that, but just something very, like, out of the blue that spikes the representative reading the essays.
What's the difference between a personal statement and the essays, and are both required?
Well, the Common App has an essay that you have to do. So like there's like 5 different prompts you can choose, and you choose one of those, and then you write your essay on that. And then some colleges require an additional essay, so sometimes it's why our school. Other times it has a prompt. I remember one of my prompts was, Kermit the Frog has often been known for saying, it's not easy being green, discuss. Another prompt was find X. And so the importance that I really want to emphasize is be yourself, be uniquely yourself. Because the more you make your essay about like yourself and not as generic, the stronger chance you have. Because for me, I got into Chicago because my essays were totally unique. Like, and I jumped on that opportunity because I had such unique prompts. So definitely get those done during the summer and have at least 2 English teachers look at them. I had Mr. Forward and Mr. Work and Mr. Forward look over mine, and that really helped because each of them had a different perspective and take on it, so I could take the best out of what they said with my changes. And so yeah. And approach all your essays with enthusiasm, because sometimes if you're applying to school, like a reach school that you know you're going to get into, you're kind of like bored writing, well, why us? Because I know I'm going to get in. So you have to pretend like you're really enthusiastic about it. So yeah.
We had used like an ACT tutor because we had our son take it multiple times, and that tutor also worked on essays. So I had him revise, and then my husband and I sat and read through it, and then we got a good clean one. And then another school I applied to, they wanted a different prompt. So some schools have little added things that they want as well. So, but having a main one, and we did it over the summer before senior year, I think that was nice to just kind of knock it out.
Oh, wait, also, sorry, I just want to jump in. Make, like, use a Google Drive or keep all of your essays in one spot, and then always keep them, like, updated. Be like, this is my, like, this one university essay, because sometimes, most of the time, the prompts overlap. So if it's, like, you know, like, not, like, they have the same prompts, you could just copy and paste and just slightly edit a few things. Like, be very careful when you do that, though, because you don't want to send an essay to one school and have it say the wrong name, which has happened to a lot of students. So you want to be careful doing that.
Yeah, I would also say is the prompt for the Common App comes out in August. And I was very quick to have Kate like, the app or the prompt is out, we better start working on the essay. Well, as it turns out, that none of the colleges that she applied to Common App. So kind of know, if you have an idea what schools your child is looking into, find out, do they take the Common App? Because there's no time, I mean, that was
That
a
would
great,
save me
it
like
would have
10
been an
hours
awesome
of like
essay. And then
sweating
she
over an
got
essay that I didn't even need. So make sure they take the Common App.
Every year, more and more schools are joining the Common App consortium. You can just go on the Common Application website, and there's it has a whole list of schools that are there, so you can see everything that's on there.
Yeah, Amy, your ACT tutor?
It was Dean Sullivan, he's down
Yeah,
in
okay.
Riverside.
Did you
So-
hunt? Like, did you go looking and?
No, that I just had word of mouth and convenience,
All right.
and he worked out very well. And the other thing I was gonna say is that every time that ACT goes up, the money goes,
Yeah.
you know, you get more money off. So he went up 2 points, and that was
That's big money.
substantial. It helped a lot, yeah.
And the essays are how long usually?
450 to 700
Yeah.
words, I'd say.
Oh,
Depends
okay.
on-
You try to keep it,
Under 650 words.
Yeah.
yeah,
I've
okay.
had some 200 word ones too.
If they say 200 words, don't go over 200.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So,
And for the personal statements, they're usually no more than 150,
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
at the most.
Okay.
So that's probably the main difference between them.
we have a question?
Yeah, did anybody use the Coalition app?
Oh, I know a friend that did, but he only used it from one school.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a handful of schools that don't use Common, they're all
Right.
using Coalition, but they're East Coast and they're highly selective. But I was just curious if anybody had any app, but they're doing that, and I think it's around, is it at like 100 schools or something?
Yeah, it's right around that ballpark, not quite as big as Common App yet, but it's getting bigger every year. Any other words on essays?
Just get on them. I mean, they're gonna procrastinate over the summer. I mean, it's just get, you know, whether it's, you just gotta set the time, you know, just like, okay, let's just do 2 hours, right? Not like, we're gonna sit down for 15 hours, right, for the next 10 hours on a Saturday. You know, just take it one bite at a time, right?
Did anyone take, I've heard, doesn't RB offer a class over the summer of essay writing? I've heard
There's,
that's-
the Camp College has essay writing in it. That's a portion of the class that's in the summer.
Okay.
We do have early in the fall, sometime probably mid-September, essay writing workshop that students can sign up to go to, and depending on the period, some English classes will just go to that as well. So there are some resources in that regard.
Yeah, I went to that college workshop and that really helped me. And that was led actually by the University of Chicago, which is known for their outlandish essay prompts. So that's really helpful. And also, early on in senior year, Mr. Worth and Ms. Harson both assign essays that relate, that you can use for your college application. Like they tailor it so that it'll fit for your college, for your Common App. So it's really helpful because then that forces you to get that done early on in the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. The majority of the English teachers for seniors, they do a really good job at making sure they read over your essay prompts for colleges and scholarships, and they give you time in class to help you with college questions, to help you with college essays, and make sure that you're feeling comfortable with writing good, structured college essays for sure.
Yeah.
And I really agree with Cynthia's point to save everything in a Google Drive. Going back to when I was talking about the Common App and how I didn't need all of the essays that I wrote for the Common App, I ended up using a lot of those same essays for scholarships later on in the year. So those really do help to have them saved. That saves me a good 10, 15 hours later on in the year for sure.
Thank you. We've heard a lot about what you guys have done to prepare, and some of it was as early as freshman year, and some of it was as late as Monday. Anything you wish you would have done the summer before senior year, that done differently or added on to what you've already done?
Okay. Well, I mentioned this before, but QuestBridge was a huge, like, I didn't make it as a finalist, but if you do qualify for the financial need, it's amazing, honestly, because like you can get a chance to go to highly selective school for 4 years, but like the income, it's targeted towards low-income minority students. I think the average income of this year's finalists was around $30,000 a year. But there's also a lot of fly-in programs that you can do, so that they'll like fly you into a college for free, basically. Like, it's a really simple application. And then also, we live right next to Chicago. It's a metro train right away. There are so many internships and experience that you can get at the museums. Personally, I did an internship at the Museum of Science and Industry last summer, and that is also what fueled my application. So even if you're not that much interested in science, there's still a lot that you can do, especially because we're so close to Chicago. So you can just Google internships in Chicago, and that'll really help.
Well, definitely something I wish I did was go on more college visits, because senior year, if you want to get out of your finals, you can't miss more than 5 days of school. You get 2 college days though, so it's pretty much like 7. But doing the overnight stays and, well, technically you want to do those during the week or during a time where there is school, so not like spring break. I mean, you can, but you do want to see how the whole student life works and everything there, and like clubs and everything. So I definitely wish I went on more visits during the summer. But yeah, it's been a big thing. I think the thing for me, I really wish I didn't freak out as much as I did the summer before senior year. I was trying to count in my head when they were talking how many like mental breakdowns I had over the summer. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm almost out of here. I'm like freaking out. It's so much like commitment and responsibility, and I just like you pile everything on because you think it all has to be done at that moment. If you're a procrastinator, yeah, maybe you should start a little earlier than like people who tend to do things on time and regularly, more consistently. But for me, I think I was just so overwhelmed by everything. I was like, you have to do Common Ed, you have to do this, and blah, 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 blah. So I think just doing everything in increments was something that I wish I would have done instead of sitting down for like 10 hours in a Starbucks and writing like 4 essays in a row because I thought that would save me some time, but it didn't. And I think just doing things in increments is so important because if you pile everything on at one time, it just becomes so overwhelming. And then I feel that you become really ingenuine with the way you write and the way you talk about yourself on your applications as well.
Yeah, I think just the spacing it out is, and having the deadlines, like we would give my son a deadline like a month before something was supposed to be ready because we just knew we were gonna need time to go through it and make sure we were being thorough and just to try to space it out because it gets, you know, they're still doing school and if they have extracurriculars and just family, I mean, it's just a lot, so.
I always tell students the whole college process is like taking another class, so it's a lot of work. Okay, financial aid. What kind of advice can you give us?
Don't expect much.
through this whole process? We've got several parents on this one.
I guess I would say, when you hear so much about the FAFSA, you know, that.
Can I say something real quick about FAFSA? The process is, FAFSA is new with this senior class, where it bumped up to where you could start it in October now, where it used to not be till January if you've got older sons or daughters that have gone through the process. You can start FAFSA now in October of the senior year. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it sounds really scary, but I mean, really, it took about 15 minutes to fill it out. And, you know, we didn't qualify for any, you know, financial aid, which is depressing, but still fill it out because that's how universities give out like work study, and that's how you can qualify for student loans. So don't think, you know, we're not going to get any money, but you may qualify for loans or work study at least out of it, and apply for it every year because I hear, Kate's the oldest, so we'll know in a couple of years when my next daughter applies, you may qualify for something if you've got 2 kids in college at the same time. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah. So, you know, for once having twins, you know, maybe it's paying a little bit. Yeah, so definitely you're do the FAFSA, but pay attention to deadlines, and then like and pay. You know, it's been a little crazy with us having twins, so there's all these schools coming in and stuff. Like for Notre Dame, everyone does the FAFSA, but then I missed that they want some other stuff. So I didn't really, that was my fault, pay attention to that. So then when he got accepted, next thing I know, I get an email the next day, like we still need, they wanted to see like our tax returns or W-2s, and then another whole profile, that CSS profile, which is like College Board. It's kind of like the FAFSA, so it was like, great, I can do another thing like this again. Yeah, but I mean, the nice thing about that was it asks about everything like who, if you're taking care of other people in your household, like you're paying more than that anyways. But it's kind of like, when you start looking at these schools, don't be too, you're going to be shocked by the sticker price, right? But it's almost like buying a car. I mean, I kind of compare it to it. Maybe it's too simple, but yeah, here's Dayton's X, but then, you know, then John got a merit scholarship. He got some type of a grant through Dayton, you know, so then it comes down. And then like Amy was saying, if you have competing schools and there's, you know, definitely it's like buying a car. Like say, well, you know, Miami's giving him this much money, but he really wants to go, but, you know, like, can you sweeten the deal? There's nothing wrong with going to that. Notre Dame, we haven't heard yet because we've got that other stuff, so we'll see what
And that's where, going back to what I was saying before about actually applying to the schools, and then they have all the information from the FAFSA, and that really helped to make it specific and to help us negotiate specifically too, because the one school said, well, can you send over this? And I was like, sure, I'll show it to you. I've got it all printed out. I've got my son's name on it. So that definitely helped. We also, because my son's GPA went up, so I contacted the 2 schools that he was, you know, and then they took off more money because it was a little higher than when he applied. So, and it's just calling and talking to people and also talking to different people at the same school sometimes in the admissions office. So it's a little bit of a negotiating thing for sure. But it does help because that actually was part of our decision, because some schools gave a ton of money, some give nothing. You know, so some of those we scratched off the list, and we would not have known if we were getting any money unless we had applied and they had all of our specific information. So the money definitely, like we were listing the schools and the characteristics and the class sizes and, you know, the amount of majors and all that. And then at the very top, it was how much does it cost? And then we're hoping, you know, that it's a school that they like that is also making it a little bit more affordable, so.
And I did find that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's more negotiating at private schools because Kate only applied to state schools. And so
You probably get more money in general, I would think, what we saw from
from
private
private
schools.
schools, yeah.
Right.
But there still is merit money to be had. There still are like presidential scholarships to be had at every state university. But once they give you the number, there's not like, oh, I'm going to pay this much less somewhere else. And they're like, well, then you should do that.
Yeah, private schools typically tend to give out more money than public schools, but they are a lot more expensive. And also, the higher up you go in selectivity, the more money they're going to give you. So, yeah.
Well, and the other thing that is, you don't realize the experiences that your student have, how that equates to dollars later. And it's not that you want your child volunteering and doing things. I'm glad that my son chose to do some of these things that actually turned into money for him through volunteering, leadership, good grades, just being a well-rounded student. A well-rounded student is what a lot of these universities, even some of them had little side notes, like what really stood out in your application was this, and they were logging, you get 6,000 for this, you get 17,000 for that. And so I know specifically what they were giving money for and why they were giving it. And so I think it's a nice perk that it's, you know, something that he did anyway, but that he gets rewarded, or we get rewarded as parents, but it's nice that way, yes.
So Amy, and when you get that acceptance letter and here's what you have to pay, is that for 1 year or is that for 4 years?
It logs it out. Some schools say that their tuition will remain the same. They like guarantee it for each year. Some show the increments of what it'll raise to each year. So, is that answering your question?
Some scholarships will be 4-year renewable. Sometimes they may just be a 1-year scholarship. You know, it depends on.
And some
And
have
it'll
to
list
have
that stuff for you.
There are
on the-
criteria.
to keep it, yes.
But you do the FAFSA every year, right?
Right, yeah.
You just keep trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, a note about the CSS profile, you do have to pay $16 for every form that you fill out and want to send.
Right.
So that's, yeah.
I have another question kind of back on testing and Mike maybe.
We're actually going to talk about testing right now.
Oh, okay. So should I hold my
Let's
question?
hold your question and see if one of us answer here. First, we'll talk about the current junior class is unique, different from what the seniors dealt with in the sense that ACT is no longer the state test. We are offering it here at RB for all the juniors to take as part of this, like a 1 day during the day where they don't have to sign up for a separate national test date. Now the state test is the SAT. So all our juniors this year are taking both. These seniors, probably not all of them took both. Some of them probably just took the ACT. Some of them may have taken both. But colleges will take your best test score, and we encourage students to take it multiple times. So that was my question here, was how many times did you take the ACT? Did you take an SAT and an ACT, just an ACT? And how many times, and did that benefit you in the long run?
I took a practice SAT in school and then found out that none of the colleges I was applying to needed my SAT score. And I didn't really think, junior year I didn't know all the schools I was applying to and didn't really think that they needed it, so it wasn't an issue. I actually took the ACT 4 times. I'm not a very good standardized test taker. So I was just trying to raise my score every time. You can sign up to take an ACT on ACT Gather, I'm pretty sure that's it. And then I also went to Dean in Riverside, the same thing that Mrs. Scott, that Keenan went to, which really helped raise my score. It raised my score 7 points actually. So it was very influential. Just keep doing like the practices really helped. And definitely I would recommend trying to get the highest score you can, because even though I do have a very good GPA, I didn't get into like my reach school just because my ACT score wasn't like compared to the competing contestants. So yeah, I would just really focus on the ACT or SAT now and try to get the highest score.
And do you know, are they gonna do the super score with the SAT? Because with the ACT, they, like. just-
Some colleges will super score, some won't. It's kind of school by school how they want to.
So the super score is they will take, like, if you, like, my son took the ACT 4 times. And so, like, they took the best math from this one and the best science from, or whatever, and then they compile, so his score went up even more from where it went up after tutoring. But some schools don't super score, or you have to request. Some say, oh, okay, we'll look into it, or some don't. So that does help too, just.
There is a website, and I mean, if you just type in schools that's super score, I don't remember the website off the top of my head, but there's a school that lists all the schools, at least this year, that did super score. Some schools won't super score for admission, but they will super score for scholarship money too. So that's all, it could be a combination of both.
And then I do really recommend every time that your student takes the ACT, they have a portion on the bottom of like the Scantron where they fill out their answers that is one school that you'd like to send your score to, and it's for free. Four schools. And that saves a lot of money, because if you don't put a school down, that's fine, but then when you log back into your ACT account, you have to pay $12 per school, I'm pretty sure. So it does save you money.
Yeah, I want to say just one thing about taking Kate took the ACT, 3 times, I think. And before, I would say a few years ago, and I would hear all these people talking about taking the ACT or these tests several times, and I think, well, why are you trying to get a better score? Like, if it's going to be that hard to get into this school, why would you want to go there? And they're like, no, it doesn't. You're not trying to raise the score to get into the school. I mean, maybe you are, but it's if you want to go to some school in Illinois that might be easy for you to get into, but you get like a 30 on your ACT, you're going to get so much more money. So it really, you're a lot of times just trying to get a better score because you'll get more money in the long run.
That's where the tutoring pays off too, because I was like, oh, I'm spending all this money on tutoring, but then when all that money came off, it was kind of like it paid for it. And so it's a little bit of an investment thing. I think the experience too, I think too, there's, a lot involved, it's a lot of pressure, so I think every time you would go in, he's like, I got this, because it's just, you build that confidence, and the experience is helpful.
I took the ACTs 5 times, and my score rose 5 points. And so what really helps is the tutoring. It's good to get tutoring locally, because I got tutoring from the Princeton Review, and personally I can say my experience with them wasn't good, and it wasn't worth all the money that I paid, and it's very expensive. And then also I took 2 SAT subject tests. Now if you're applying to a highly selective school, or you're thinking about applying to them, most highly selective schools require at least 2 SAT subject tests. So the SAT subject tests are like basically a standardized version of a final. So they have a chemistry one, a biology one, 4 different languages, Spanish, French, German, and Chinese, I think. And you can take those, and the best score you can get is an 800, and those really help. And it also helps make your application stand out, and it shows colleges, hey, I'm really good at this subject. And so, yeah, most schools require like a math 2 and a science. Yeah. And then for the ACT and SAT, juniors have this great opportunity, because some students are better at one test than the other. ACT is better for a student that can work through questions quickly and move at a really fast pace, because the ACT is just on the timing. The math, you get less than a minute for each question, roundabout. And so you have to keep moving constantly. But then the SAT is good for students who like to take their time and be more methodical with their work. So it just depends on what type of test taker you are. And juniors get this opportunity to choose.
In colleges, pretty much every college will take scoring either, and there's a sliding scale.
I would say Yeah, John probably took it 3 times. He's really not a good standardized test taker. You know, we did do tutoring for him as well. And I would say if you are doing that, make sure you have them vested in it. You know, whether that could be, okay, you pay half, I'm going to pay half. They have some skin in the game. Because they're going to get like homework assignments. I mean, it's not just going for the 1 hour session, an hour and a half with Dean, and then all of a sudden it's going to make you an expert at ACT. They got to put the work in. And Zach, I think, took it 3 or 4 times. He didn't really increase, you know. So, I mean, I definitely suggest taking it multiple times.
All right, you guys kind of have all given a lot of information. Did you find anything frustrating during the process, or anything that you want to share as kind of something you wish you knew before the whole process? We can start with Amy. You good, or?
Actually,
Okay, go ahead.
down here.
I saw the look on it.
I think the one thing I was thinking after we went through all the schools, one thing I wish we had done is we did a lot of big schools and a lot of little schools, and then we only really did one that was in the middle, that was Dayton, that like population size. So right away, my son was knocking off the big schools. And so, and I kind of wish I had a little bit more of a variety on the sizes, because I think coming from RB, I was just mentioning to Carol, I think my son has had a really wonderful experience here with a lot of the teachers taking extra time to meet with him before and after school or study. I just feel like he's taken advantage of the environment here, and I think he was kind of drawn to that and to his next move. And so some of the schools on the tours, they were saying, oh, the professors have long lines and they have office hours at the lecture halls. Right away, he was just feeling like that was not the right fit. So he ended up at a small school, which I do think is the best fit. But I was wondering if maybe the medium size, if we had more of those. So I think kind of a variety, because you start to eliminate things, and then you notice that the things you're eliminating have a lot of commonalities. So, you know, that was kind of the only thing. I think too, what's hard is my son is undecided on what his major is, so that was making it a little frustrating. So. I just think the time crunch was a little hard, because we were trying to get to all these schools and we're trying to work, and I have 2 other kids, you know, so it was the logistics of like planning the visits and, you know, oh, we have to stay at a hotel or that kind of thing. So that was a little bit more frustrating, but I'm actually so relieved this part is over. I have to do it again in 2 more years, but it's kind of nice just to have, it's a nice experience, I think, overall too, to have this time. I was trying not to cry on every tour, and it goes by so fast. So I was so excited when we drove out to Colorado that, you know, he picked a school close to me that I could drive in the car. So it's just, just that part of it is, it's emotionally just a little bit, you know, taxing on the family with all that too, but.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. If this is your first child, I mean, it's the unknown, I think, is the most frustrating thing. You know, like, when will we get the letter? When will we find out about the financial package? You know, will it come at the same time? Will it come at separate times? You know, are there other scholarships they can apply? So it's just, I think the frustrating thing is learning how to navigate through all the different schools' websites, how to find the information that you're looking for, because every school's website is slightly different. You know the information's there somewhere, but it's overwhelming and it's emotional, and but it does all come together. So
and I was just going to add to that too. You feel like your kid's never going to get in with all this stuff. And I remember when the first letter came in that he got in, I was like calling all the grandparents. Oh my God, you know, it's like such a relief. Like, and then the rest of them kept coming in. I'm like, oh, we got, you know, but it is just like this up and down, and you're like stalking the mailman for the acceptance letter. You know, it's just kind of, it's a lot, but.
Yeah, I mean, frustrating part, probably just keeping everything organized. So obviously with twins, you have a bunch of, some schools overlap, but a bunch didn't. So I suggest like create a filing system just for, you know, all the, so when you go on these campus visits, or they start, once they take that ACT and you start picking schools, your mailbox is gonna be inundated with brochures from schools. And I wish they would take half of the money that they use on that and put it back into, and it's like, they're like high expensive things. So you're gonna keep getting, but you gotta open them, because like Amy's saying, like, you don't know, this might be the one that here's a free code for the free something, right? And then maybe create some kind of spreadsheet or something, because every school you're gonna see, they all have different application deadlines, because you're gonna start learning things about, if you've never gone through this, there's gonna be early action, there's gonna be early decision, there's gonna be regular decision, right? And then there's all these different deadlines of what, in every school, those things, they call it one thing, but it means a little bit different, right? So you gotta it's main keeping track of those dates, because then what, you're gonna have to work backwards, like, okay, Zach, well, their deadline is, November 1st for early decision, well, you gotta get going on this, right? Like, you gotta go work backwards, that's the frustrating part there.
I got a quick question on that. Like you were saying, early decision, Mark, and this is from a word of mouth, but Washington U, they're like specific, they wanna know if you're interested.
Right.
And I had a friend, his kid applied, high grades, high ACT, and got rejected because he wasn't following through when another kid was in. You know what I mean? Because he kept going to their summer workshop or something like that, I don't know. You guys run into that at all?
Yeah, so the difference between, well, first, for those of you who don't know, there's a difference between early decision and early action. Early decision is when you apply to school by November 1st, and that decision is binding. So once you submit your application, and if they accept you, you're going there for sure. And then early action is the same deadline, but it's not binding. And so if you apply, let's say, early decision or early action, and the school says, well, you're deferred, and that just means they put your application into the regular applicants pool, and they're going to consider you again. What you should do is send in a letter saying, like, hey, thank you for this, I'm still really interested. And it's called a letter of interest or a letter of intent. Okay. And so you just send that in, and like, hey, yo, I really want to go here. Just confirm and like show that you're still interested in this school, and it's still your #1 priority. And so, yeah, you want to keep up on that.
I would say, so some schools will come around, they might do little workshops throughout the area. So, I mean, I can talk about, like, for Notre Dame, they do these little dog and pony shows that say NAS or St. Ignatius. So we know about it, but I'm like, let's just go. And I was dragging them. Like, if we hear one thing, right, it's going to be great. And so the person giving it was actually one of the admission counselors for Chicago that will look at his application. So for that, well, like, we knew that was his #1. But so she starts saying, well, for early decision, the GPA median is 4.4, the ACT median's 34, and we're looking at each other like, okay, well, we're not quite there. So we went to her afterwards, and this might be for some other schools too. Like we said, she goes, send me his transcript, send me his stuff. I'll look it over, give it a once over, let you know whether or not I think he should go. Weird thing is, she told us, yes, he should go early decision. So we're back in our mind thinking, well, she must have a good sense. Long story short, he got deferred. So he went into the regular pool, which we had to wait until like he heard like 2 weeks ago. But reach out to like these admission counselors saying like, we don't know. Like some are binding, like Notre Dame's is goofy. There was a pseudo, it was like, it's not binding, but you can't apply to mine Ohio's early decision, right? So again, that's where it gets really confusing.
And how do they know?
What's that?
How do they know if you do like early decision at multiple schools? Or is it just kind of
you
like
have to sign a contract?
Yeah,
So it's legally binding.
They'll know.
you do?
Yeah, like you have to sign it, print it out, and then you submit it back in, like scan it.
And before anything is sent with early decision as well, we as counselors get, it pops up through Naviance, where we send all the transcripts, and it's linked to Common App. And we get a thing that says, the student's applying early decision, make sure you have this conversation with them. So it makes us, we know when they are applying early decision, so if it's something that, oh, wait, stop, you might want to rethink this. It does give us that notification before we send the transcripts out and finalize the application.
I think, Paul, some schools, they do, if you do early decision, it is showing like, this is my #1, right? But you really need to research it, because you need to find out, like, do they defer, or is it just, if it's a no, it's a no, right?
Yeah.
And you like, well, maybe I should have, right, but maybe I should have probably gone into the regular pool. So it's kind of you need to do some research, just, I think you guys probably found, call admissions, these people are, I would think that, like, here I am calling out of the blue, they're so nice and helpful, it's crazy, like, you would think, like, here's another crazy father calling, with stupid questions.
So if you apply early decision and then you get your financial aid package, then you don't have any other school to compare it to. Do they kind of realize that and you're kind of on the hook for whatever they give you?
There are, that's,
Trap of
Yeah.
early decision, and you're stuck with whatever financial aid package they give you. But if you're applying to a school that's really selective, they're gonna give you a lot more money than you would normally get at another school. So there's always that, like, you have to juggle it, be like, oh, I really wanna go here, but like, how much money could they possibly give me? But then also, it's better to apply early, even if it's not your number one school. If your school has the opportunity to apply early action, apply. Because at a lot of schools, there's a huge difference in acceptance rate. I know at Harvard, one of their early acceptance rates is around 25%, and their regular acceptance rate, which is January 1st, is 5%. So if you are a borderline applicant, it could give your application that edge, that competitive edge to move forward, because it shows like, I really want to be here.
These are the kinds of conversations when I was, out there listening to these kind of panels that really stressed me out. There's all of these technical terms and it sounds very stressful. But I think one thing that, if I have to impart any wisdom tonight, it is, like, listen to what have your child make a list of characteristics that they want in the school. And they may not lend themselves to these kinds of schools where you're having to make these early decision, binding, early action. There are lots of really great schools out there that are not highly selective, that don't require you to make these kinds of decisions. So don't get really stressed out by this kind of stuff, because unless you're going to a highly selective school, you probably aren't going to have to encounter this. Is that correct?
So the early decision is primarily just with highly selective schools. And to answer your question, it is a binding contract and you are withdrawing your applications to other schools. However, the only way oftentimes you can get out of that contract is if the money just isn't right and you can prove that. And that's processed later on. And then that opens you up. Now, you may have missed deadlines at other schools by the time that decision is made, but it doesn't limit you to apply to other schools. That's still if that's a legitimate reason. Anything else in regards to the process, words of advice, frustrating?
Well, definitely something that was very frustrating for me was the waiting period, just because, I did early action for everything, so I put all my applications by November 1st, and then I had to wait a couple months, which was just, it was like a waiting period. It's okay though, so you get to hear back. And then also, as I said earlier, I just went to my school to visit, and I got to take a full tour this time of the School of Nursing, because I'm going to be a nurse. And they were talking about all the AP credits that they will accept. Most schools only accept, the passing is 3 or above on an AP exam. And I'm taking 3 AP classes this year, pretty stressful. And I found out that 2 of them will not be accepted even if I get a 5, which is the highest score you can get, just because the program that I'm going into doesn't accept those AP credits. So definitely something to look into. If your child already knows what they want to go into in their schools, definitely look into what AP scores they'll accept. Definitely take those AP tests seriously. So that's something to greatly take into consideration.
Not to say that don't take AP classes, because those are like a really enriching experience and you do learn a lot more. But sometimes you may not have to take that AP test, which is a lot of stress saved.
Yes.
Something that really frustrated me was not being able to visit as many schools as I would have liked to, just because they were so far away. And it was so hard to get away for a weekend when you have a job or when you're volunteering and you have a bunch of schoolwork that you have to do. And getting away for a weekend is just almost impossible. Because I looked at a lot of schools in Colorado and kind of more on the west side, and that was just super hard to get away, just resource-wise and time-wise as well. And something else that my situation is kind of unique, because I applied to Montana, and 3 weeks later I found out I was accepted. It was bam, now I'm applied with like this 10-minute application, bam, and then I have my scholarship money. And yet I was still being pushed to apply to more schools that I didn't want to apply to. Not saying it's their fault, not saying that it's bad, but
Sometimes you just know.
sometimes you just know, like when I was looking for it. No, backup's always good, yeah, for sure. But that was just like I walked into like my future where I could like give you the exact moment we were sitting in the new cafeteria at Montana State, and I just like looked out the campus and I was like, this is it, like this is my home for the next 4 years. And you just got like a feeling of peace when you like figure that out and you feel it inside you. But yeah, so it was definitely frustrating being pushed to apply to more schools than I thought was necessary.
You guys have given some great information, great insight here to hopefully the families here in the audience. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? Feel free to-
You guys talked about scholarships. Are there websites that you go to apply for scholarships, or is it just the school that you're applying to?
Yeah, I think there's this one called Scholarship Owl, I think, and that like it'll list out, like you can literally just input criteria. There's also College Board has a section where you can filter out scholarships, and then RB, the student services website, has a lot of really good local scholarships. And although the money is like a little bit less, you have a much better chance of getting those. So, yeah.
Also, on each college's website, they have tons of scholarship opportunities. Usually they'll mail, like any schools that they're interested in you or vice versa. They'll send you like a stack of letters, and usually inside them they'll be like, oh, these are the scholarships that you should apply for. So that's
Some colleges you don't even need to apply. Some of them are just automatically
Yeah.
given to you based on merit.
based on.
Based on how you've done academically and everything. Just to piggyback off what Cynthia said, two other ones, like our student services webpage, we have a spot for local scholarships, which are only open to RV students, and that application opens up in February of the student's senior year. So we have the local scholarships, and then we have a general scholarship link, and that's whatever comes our way from throughout the state, Midwest, country, whatever it is. You know, they're obviously much bigger pools. But two other scholarship search engines that we like to use with our students is fastweb.com and studentscholarships.org.
Well, the nice thing with FastWebs is I signed up for their email and I put in all the schools and then they send me, you know, here's a private scholarship you can apply for. It requires this essay or they advertise no essay required, you know, so there's a lot there that are more private, yeah.
What was the second one?
Studentscholarships.org.
But most of this stuff is all senior year.
Scholarship-wise, 90% of the
Yeah,
course is senior.
all that senior year.
Scholarships, yeah. All the money stuff is, it's kind of backwards, where you're applying early and the money stuff is later.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of.
Does RB foster any relationship with graduates? So say my daughter is interested in St. Louis, you know, and you know, I don't know if there would be any benefit of actually getting in there because we know an RB grad, but do they do anything like that? You know, what is, you know, somebody that's actually there?
That's somebody that's there, sure. Like if
It's almost like shadowing, you know.
Right, right. We don't have a formal program by any means, but if we do know as counselors, hey, you know, so-and-so is you know, a sophomore there. I know some students out there, would you want me to set you up and connect with them? We do that all the time.
But it does help, I mean, we've talked about this, Mike, right? Like, if we RV starts sending students to University of Chicago, right, or wherever, when they see a track record and they have someone, they're successful there, they graduate or they're doing well there, it does help a little bit for kids coming down the road, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely, those
especially if you, like, whatever, go to some school out west, no one's ever applied there, it might be a little bit more difficult.
At the LT fair this week, college fair, they were talking about transferology, that you put in your AP results, you put in your transfer credits, whatever, and they'll show you school by school what that'll mean for a given program. Is that something
Is that something?
you have experience with? Is that?
I'm unfamiliar with that site, but I'd certainly like to look into it, so. Did anybody use this? Did anybody get familiar with it? It's something maybe we should look transferology.
Yeah, transferology, whatever.
Okay, something we can definitely take a look at. Anything else? All right,
I was just wondering, when do you start asking for scholarships? When do you start sending in your scholarship?
I don't worry about that until January.
Yeah, and usually the specific colleges will have their specific deadlines too.
Okay.
For example, mine was February 16th this year. But I know a lot of other scholarships were in March or somewhere in either January. It's just after you get in. You don't have to commit to do the scholarships.
There are some scholarships that do have deadlines the first semester. What I would recommend is if you go on, the local scholarships that are offered RB are all February and March. However, the general scholarships, if you go on that, you can go on that website right now, or on that link on our website, and you can see where all the deadlines fall. Now, Killian wouldn't be able to apply for it right now, but you can see, okay, well, mental note, he might qualify for this one, and this deadline is October 15th of next year, so you can kind of take a look. And those scholarships generally are the same ones every year.
And what link is that in?
It's on the Student Services webpage. It's the navigate to the through the financial aid, and then there's a link for scholarships, and there's a general, that would be the general scholarships link.
Going along with the I just have something really quick. Going along with like the dates, I think Mr. Mishkowski said it before, just like watching them and making sure you have the right dates. Because what happened to me, I applied for a really big scholarship at Montana. And I looked at the date a couple times and I thought it was December 22nd, but little did I know that it was December 2nd. I just added an extra 2 in there. So please watch the dates when you're applying, because if you get the wrong one, it's gonna screw you over in the long run.
So the gentleman said that the college fair at LT was last weekend, is that correct?
Wednesday.
Last weekend. Okay. Is there another one coming?
The next college fairs, I'm not aware of any other local ones this spring. Generally, they're real big in the early fall. There's a big one at Navy Pier in the fall. There's a big, Triton used to host one, I don't believe we can do it again next year. COD hosts one, so there's some bigger local ones that the info will provide once we get there.
Okay.
Ms. Augustine, do you know of any others this spring? I think LT is probably usually the last one.
I was going to ask, the Navy Pier College Fair, do they have colleges from other areas? Because the one at LT seemed to be all Midwest schools.
Yes, the one at Navy Pier is nationwide. There's 400 or 500 colleges that are represented in all shapes and sizes.
One more question. When do you start applying to colleges? Is it your junior year or is it your senior year?
Senior year.
Okay, so.
It's first semester.
The usual deadlines are November 1st for anything early and January 1st for regular admission. And then some schools have rolling admission, so you can submit your application whenever you want, and they'll give your decision back to you in a couple of weeks.
When students come back in the fall or summer, that usually that first week, second week of school, all the counselors sit down with our groups of students and go through the whole application process. So really right now is the research process, the kind of narrow down where you might want to apply to process and start getting that, gathering that info. And then when we come back in the fall, applications, we give the whole timeline on that and the whole process of that.
We also have another evening event for parents, a senior countdown to college in September as well, where we share with the students about the college application process and then answer general questions as well.
Well, thank you guys very much. Thank you, the panel. Let's give it a round.